So welcome everyone. My name is Varun Rawat and I will be moderating this webinar today. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. I hope you are safe, taking care of yourself and your loved ones. We all know that the theme of today's webinar is business continuity, how moving to cloud proved to be the best decision. Where we'll discuss how Compass Group as an organization is realizing the benefits of moving early to cloud and leveraging cloud services during a crisis such as COVID-19. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. The session is being recorded and your lines will remain muted during this session. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the question box in your control panel. The Q&A round will be at the end of the session and we will address your questions at that time. We will also have a raffle draw at the end of this webinar for the participants. We are honored to have a great panel of speakers for this webinar with us today. They are Raj Prasad, who is General Manager, Finance Systems, Digital and Technology Solutions at Compass Group, Australia. Compass is a global hospitality and facilities enterprise. Raj brings in more than 20 years of rich experience in roles like management of financial and operational systems. I mean, over a diverse range of technologies, maintenance and operation of the core financial applications and related infrastructure. Hi, Raj, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you? Hi, everyone.
Very well, great to have you here, Raj. Now, we also have Sunil with us. Sunil is Senior Vice President, Sales and Operations, ANZ at Path Infotech. He brings on board 30 years of cross-functional experience and have helped organizations to transform and evolve. He is also admired in the industry for his business acumen, leadership, and technical proficiency. Hi, Sunil. How are you? Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Varun. Thanks to be good to be here.
Great. So, without further ado, I will now request you, Sunil, to take the lead from here and give us an insightful session to all our audience today.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Varun. Thanks for the introductions and for all the effort that you've undertaken to organizing this event. I'd also like to say thanks to Shirley, our marketing manager, who has coordinated the design, setting up the context, and of course, marketing of this event, and Nikhil, who works with me in our Sydney office as our technical pre-sales consultant, for his effort in digging out the research data. Just a quick disclaimer, the data has been collected from articles by edgemarkets.com and businesswire.com, which of course has been highlighted over here. So hi, my name is Sunil. Thanks again for joining us to attend this webinar. Our aim is to make the next hour as informative as possible. It is not about any specific technology or product, but purely about the journey and experience of one organization that decided to move the critical applications to the cloud 3 years back. We would also like to share some research data that we have collected, which surely will be helpful in understanding where we are as organizations in our cloud adoption and taking the right steps to ensure we do not get stuck in the spokes of pandemics like COVID-19. Yeah. So cloud adoption and business continuity will have become synonymous with each other. We will be touching on these two topics and their relationship with each other during the webinar. Okay. So as we look at this slide, of course, and then for a long time, cloud has been advocated as an avenue for efficiencies and savings for businesses. So in current times, if you look at it, virtual ways of working are as much about operational continuity as they are about operational expenditure. So in Asia Pac itself, spending on public cloud and related services grew at a rate of 25% CAGR, which is higher than the mature markets like Europe and US. And research states that this will most likely be doubled by 2023. So has COVID-19 become the catalyst for organizations to realize the operational and financial benefits of public cloud adoption, or for them to start their journey to explore cloud for their business critical applications? These are questions we will be addressing later in the webinar. Cloud adoption provides an avenue of growth that can help offset these economic challenges. Analysts indicate growth in public cloud could unlock about 450 billion US dollars of value across 6 major markets, namely Australia, India, Indonesia, Japan, Singapore, and South Korea. Varun, can you move to the next slide, please? Story of us. So where are we at with this? Are we ready or contemplating jumping on the bus to adapt to the new normal? And of course, we talk about the new normal as if this is a new buzzword, basically, right? So I believe it is a situation we all can relate to. We are either on the bus or getting on the bus, or at the very least, considering getting on the bus, right? And in most cases where we have spoken to our clients and or prospects who took this journey pre-COVID, it seems they're all glad that they decided to take this decision. One such organization that decided to make the move to the cloud in 2017 is Compass Group Australia. With operations in Australia and New Zealand, Compass Group is a global facilities management and catering firm with employees which are spread all over major cities in Australia and New Zealand. Interestingly, their journey to cloud and transitioning to the current new normal has been quite seamless. I will be discussing the same with Raj Prasad in just a moment. So being on cloud also assists us in continuing our business processes as normal, which is what relates to business continuity. Question is COVID-19 the last of the pandemics? I would like to hope so, but I guess not. So how do we prepare for the next crisis? Presumably, we need to be in a position to operate our businesses as usual and empower our employees with the right processes, tools, and technologies to conduct their responsibility with the least interruptions. Let's take a quick pause over here for a poll question. So whilst we do this, I will now invite Raj to share his experiences and answer some of my questions. Towards the end of this session, there will be opportunities for the attendees, i.e. yourselves, to share your questions with Raj as well. Raj, thanks for accepting to becoming a panelist on this webinar. I know you are a busy man and you made some time to be with us, and so thanks a lot for that. Raj, although a CPA by profession, I know I have known Raj to be highly connected to technology. Raj, are you ready?
I think so, Sunil. Hi, everyone. My name is Raj Prasad, and I think there's a bit of introduction given earlier, saying that I have been with Compass Australia, 20 years or so. I put a disclaimer early on that I started in a very finance or management type position, and eventually moved towards technology as and when the timing and when my interest in that area, and also I felt my strengths were, sort of showing me the way to move on to that, because I sometimes feel, and I think it was almost a testing ground when we decided to create this area of system accounting and actually putting a functional person within the D&TS team. And that is mainly because I think whenever you talk about finance applications or any sort of business applications, you need to have people that actually know the workings of applications to be sitting on some sort of panel like in DNTS. So that was actually a trial thing that they decided to move me across into the technology team. I think 20 years later, I don't think there's been too many, hopefully, downs, more ups than anything else. And in this time, there were certain things that we're looking at, as time evolved. If you look at 20 years from now, year 2000 was a totally different environment as far as technology is concerned to 2020. And obviously COVID, which no one knew in year 2000 would be facing this sort of pandemic in this year. So I think our move for cloud kind of came about accidentally, if I should say that, because we were actually on physical on-premise servers, fully hosted by a third-party vendor for a number of years, at least 12 years that I know, with this same vendor. And in 2017, and probably a bit prior to that, there was rumblings in the business that, if we go back to, and our contract was coming up for renewal with the vendor, we should be looking at cloud. And this basically came from Oracle themselves. Oracle was starting to talk about Oracle Cloud. I'd been to a couple of conferences where I'd seen that cloud was the main topic of discussion. So coming back to the business, saying, we are an Oracle EBS applications for Australia and New Zealand. We had some middleware applications then as well, which we don't have now, Oracle middleware. And should we entertain the cloud discussion? We did some, I should say, scoping. Numbers didn't quite stack up. Then actually, while we're doing this, globally, Compass Group actually started, what was called the AWS cloud migration. And we basically became another internal candidate to say, what do you want to put on cloud if you do want to put on cloud? I was very much for moving Oracle EBS application to cloud initially. There was a bit of hesitation because in some ways, the thinking in those times, and I think more came from the business than the technology people, because technology people are almost wiser, is that moving to cloud, we actually lose control. So our triggers to moving to cloud definitely was cost, because that you've been with a vendor for 12 years, and with the CPI increases and everything else, your costs just keep going up. And every time you ask for service costs money. So we were actually looking at from 2 points. One, I suppose efficiencies from a costing point of view, and also some effectiveness changes, because we saw when talking to other vendors and other people that were just embarking on that journey, that there was some effectiveness advantages as well. We could do all sorts of things. If you look at some of the buzzwords that we say: optimization, scalability, portability, having more control. You're not totally dictated by the vendor as and when he will do a refresh of environment, whatever it is. So we felt that some of the control was going to come back in-house. And we were with Path by then, Path Infotech. So we knew that we had a solid partner with us to take us in this journey, because obviously we have a very small systems finance team in-house. And so I think things just fell into place. And in 2018, we actually ended up moving all of the Oracle instances for Australia and New Zealand onto cloud. So does that answer you, Sunil? I don't know if I've kind of said too much on that.
Absolutely, it does. No. Thanks a lot. Absolutely. So basically, what I wanted to understand was, what were your triggers to moving to the cloud in 2017? And how was your journey, both from the perspective of technology changes and employees' mindset changes? Because a lot of times, we all as organizations want to go out and just adopt technology and move to the cloud or move somewhere else, but then the internal employees and colleagues don't move with that move, basically. So there's a lot of change management that needs to be required. So perhaps if you could share some of that thought process with us, that will be of interest. Yes.
Look, I'll be honest with you. When we actually, as I said, embarked on this journey, we had very aging servers, and again, apologize, I'm not a technical person, but we had Sun Solaris servers that were aging, slow servers, had done their time. We had to keep putting more grunt on every time, whether it's memory or CPU, whatever those technical words are. We were spending money because our growth in the business, was demanding it more, whether it's data or whatever those technical requirements are in the system of optimization. We were just at a point where we said, no, we think we're just throwing bad money after this is pretty much not giving us the same return. So it was all those kind of coupled in that convinced the CFO, who normally has the strings to the purse, to say, look, we will give cloud an opportunity. And because this was a global decision on going to AWS cloud, and we were just a small one country in that, we said, yep, we'll take our share of the of the cloud journey. Actually gave us better, very good pricing, as you can appreciate, because Compose around the world is on
Of
AWS
course.
cloud for various
Hmm.
applications. So it was almost a pre-given decision for us, but we had to make sure the interruption to business, the whole process, the journey of migrating to cloud was done with minimum interruption to business. Now I'll tell you now that I think we moved in October, November, if I'm not mistaken, and we probably had about 2 days of business time downtime, where we actually moved on to the new, and users were able to get it back onto the system with minimum interruption to their business time. Um, I can't remember any significant issues we had when we went live from a business point of view, but I know that path, and there was another business, another vendor that was part of the, I suppose, the server OS level, whatever you want to call it, Blue Crystal, that actually was part of the journey. We had some issues with optimization. I think that's one thing, and balancing, tuning, whatever those words are, fancy words are, we had that. But we were very lucky because with Path, who were actually, we had offshore teams in India, and with the time difference, we were able to utilize almost every business day where they would go and do something to make it better the next day, if you know what I mean, from a performance point of view. So we did not feel a huge impact to the business, I'll be honest with you.
Okay, appreciate that. So there are there's a lot of questions which people or organizations, especially business and technology specialists have. Varun, can you please move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So what I call it dispelling some myths, basically, right? So um, these myths have been there, for many years. I mean, as long as I've heard about cloud in Australia, and at least in the region, 10, 15 years back, people were totally averse to going to the cloud because it was like big, big hoo-hoo, basically. But of course, in the last 5, 7 years, things have changed. People are moving to the cloud. They're also starting thinking and considering, but there are still, questions that they have. And a lot of times, most people believe moving to the cloud is a tedious and exhaustive process. What are your thoughts and experiences on this?
Look, as I said, every time I went to a conference, I was told of the various technologies that with regard to cloud. You've heard of IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. I think and that's where I think when people start thinking very big screen, big ticket items, it kind of scares people away. And I think I was one, and I think as a business we were one as well, to say, hey, do we really want to move to cloud? Do we really want to lose control? Do we? There was all those myths around cloud.
Hmm.
I'll be honest with you. And this is fairly premature because 2017, if you go back 3 years, cloud in Australia was still an evolving notion or evolving technology. So when people came to us and said, no, no, don't look at infrastructure as a service, look at software as a service, you'll get a whole kit and caboodle. And then I
Hmm.
went through an exercise, Sunil, to be quite honest, to say, okay, well, look at my environment and tell me what is the ideal position for me. You'd be surprised to know what I was thinking actually came back as the ideal position for us at that time, and that was to take it small baby steps, take infrastructure as a service, because we already had a partner with Path to give us all the functional support. We're a company that's fairly over the years, and we've been I think Oracle has been with the business for more than 20 years, so more than my time with the company. And
Hmm.
we've got a fairly highly customized application, to be quite honest, because our business is quite diverse. We operate in a number of industries, number of sectors, so our offerings to one set of customers is totally different to another set of customers. So our Oracle application is quite heavily customized, I should say. Whether it be
Sure.
form customizations, where it would be actually functional processes that we have actually changed within to meet our business requirements, it is quite. So when we actually looked at the SaaS model, it actually wasn't the right tick for us. And
Hmm.
I think infrastructure service kind of looked like, okay, it's a small bite of the cherry, but one way we can actually sustain it should things go wrong. And so that's where I
Okay.
think a lot of the myths were coming in, and they were myths because people didn't understand the differences. People didn't understand exactly what the immediate benefits from going to cloud would be if they decided to go down that path. And you don't have to do it as big bang, as you know, everyone
Sure.
tells you.
Oh, oh, thanks. I'll ask you the next question in just a minute. Let's run one
Hmm.
more poll. while we wait and just take a small pause over here. So the next question about, again, myths is, again, it's a funny one, of course, but then I'll still ask, organizations are still not convinced that moving to public cloud will actually reduce their expenditure. What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, Sunil, I was on mute. I didn't realize.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's not the case anymore. I think if you look at organizations, I've been to a couple of Oracle user groups where I've heard other vendors that are on a similar predicament to ours, that are probably already thinking of cloud or you have just gone on cloud. And that's not the case. Organizations do see that the public cloud is quite secure, and the security is number one. When you talk about public cloud, people go, "Oh my God, my data is public, and therefore." It's chances of being sabotaged or people confidentiality and all that kind of gets compromised. So I think those days are gone. I think public clouds are just as secure as having an on-premise server. So I think in that way, people they are changing their views about going to public cloud. I hear about public clouds, I hear about private clouds, I hear about hybrids, and I was talking to someone yesterday. I said, tell me the difference between it. I think you can still be private within a public cloud, if that makes sense. And I suppose that really sounds like a hybrid model. I think Compass, in some ways, worldwide, I think we are supposed to be in that. So from a security point of view, from a disaster recovery point of view, from a patching point of view and everything, I think we are quite, we're quite within control of that, even though we are part of a public cloud. So I think, I don't know, is that what you sort of driving at, Sunil, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not driving at anything, but I'm just
Yeah.
putting forth what we hear from different organizations, right? I mean,
It does reduce the expenditure. I'll tell you now. Patching,
yeah.
sizing, commissioning a server, the time frame is much smaller. I'll tell you, during COVID is an interesting one because if you think about during COVID, we have had very less need for having two other environments, such as development or UAT being online all day, every day, because our development work has shrunk a little bit. Our business has felt the impact like most other businesses. So I've been able to say to my infrastructure guy, look, shut down UAT and dev for 12 hours of the day because I don't need it, because no one's actually doing that much of testing or whatever, right?
Right.
Or we're not having
Okay.
a lot of development work. So yes, definitely that will reduce the expenditure of server cost. Remember, cloud is more OPEX, or whereas having on-prem servers or physical servers is CAPEX. So it definitely is having a direct impact to a P&L if you manage your environments well.
Sure. No, thanks for that. We're having some technical difficulties, but I'm sure Varun is working on that, right? Moving forward, how has the decision to go to the cloud in 2017 helped you in the current pandemic situation? And I think that this would be something very useful for all of us in the session over here.
And again, it's as I said earlier, as a byproduct, going to COVID, we have realized, our purses strings are very tight. We obviously, as like every other family, every other company, I should say, in Australia and around the world, have felt the financial impact of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. So we've had to, make sure that we optimize our costings, whether it's server costs, whether it's application, with whatever across the board. From manning everything. So here, as I said to you earlier, there's ways to curb expenditure on cloud if you don't need as many environments up 24/7. If you don't, if you don't need patching as often as you would be doing otherwise. So all that is user pays on consumption. We've actually reduced. So our development work has reduced. As a result of our development work reducing, the direct impact to P&L, to the expenditure has been there. And I don't have exact numbers, but I know when I talk to my infrastructure manager, he says to me, "Oh, look, we've actually cut down this. We've made sure optimization of servers is happening." Then that's something that Path and our big guys, Riley as well, do to make sure
Mm.
we're not utilize over providing for CPU and whatever those technical terms are, let's say.
Sure, sure. So, and of course, these days with, the offices being locked down and slowly opening up, remote working and your team itself, basically, using the ERP and financial systems, month-end closings, your transactions and everything else, are they all working seamlessly, or are there struggles over there?
Yeah, no, Sunil, I actually, it's funny, but people actually expected when they worked from home, whether it be internet connectivity or whatever it is would be slow, that they would face delays in data processing, data reporting, running reports, whatever. Um, to date, and it's been over 3 months that we are working from home, I've not had any, let's say, service calls where they've said, "Look, my data is just not moving, or my report's taking longer than normal." Because think about it, the cloud is obviously working on optimum, optimal. We've not had any impact from a direct hit to because of COVID. People's connectivity from homes, obviously in Australia, as you know, internet connectivity is improved a lot more than probably even 3 years ago. Um,
Hmm.
so, we've actually not had anyone. I mean, people do use it. They say, "Look, because I'm working from home, the task is taking longer," and they tried to run that past the finance director last month, and actually, but didn't go down very well. Um, but so, you will find people saying, "Oh, because I'm working from home, it's my connectivity, is having impact." But from a financial EBS application, we've had no delays. In fact, month ends have run smoother. There've actually been no detriment because of COVID to the operations of the applications on cloud, let's say. And look, the Oracle EBS is not the only application on cloud now. We virtually have got, if not 95% of applications now on cloud. There's probably one or two that are not on cloud. So, if we would feel an impact, it just won't be e-business application, it would be a whole host of business applications that our business uses, from
Yeah,
procurement
I mean,
to billing and so on.
yeah, I would like to assume that, of course, in an organization the size of Compass Group, especially with your offices spread across ANZ region,
Yeah.
obviously the users are not just using, the ERP system or the financial system. You will have on one end supply chain coming in, on the other hand payroll coming in, or HR coming in, basically, and all of them have to be somehow integrated with each other.
Hmm.
And considering that the entire staff is sitting remotely and working on the systems, the is there any
Yeah.
pressure, or is there any stress on the system, or is there any stress on people, basically, that they're using all these systems
Hmm.
but still working pretty much efficiently on those systems?
We can be very thankful for Microsoft Teams, because I'll tell you now, I think the whole organization is just fully, taken up the use of Microsoft Teams and the best way of using it as well in a situation such as remote working, and
Mm,
that really has helped as well. So I
that's
think,
awesome.
yeah, I don't know this, Sunil, because as I said to you, and I apologize, I'm not technical, but backup and storage and data redundancy and purging and all that. That's been very much clockwork, especially at month end, because I have responsibility to making sure once GL closes, the backup is done, of storage is backup offsite backup is kept, and whatever else within cloud. That's happened clockwork. Now, whether we've just got good systems in place, or whether Path are just on the ball with this with us, but we've not felt any difference whether we were doing it out of the office when we're in the office or remotely. So I think the cloud does have that advantage. I think that you're not physically having to access a server or whatever.
Okay, so looks like you are very convinced that being on the
Well,
cloud as you are. Yeah.
well, if it hadn't worked, Sunil, as you know, my neck would be on the chop, because people have been screaming and shouting,
I
and I would have to explain to people why all of a sudden our service levels have dropped, which, touch wood, they haven't so far.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. If if the service levels haven't dropped, if the users are using the applications as if they would be if they were sitting in-house and working on-prem, and they don't see any difficulties in working around in that environment. And I think that's a good thing to know. You know?
Hmm.
So let's take another poll. I don't know, is Varun, are we ready for a third poll?
Yes, Sunil. So I'm just launching the third poll.
Okay.
I would request participants to take a minute and write the responses. Yeah, Sunil, we can start. Thanks
Okay.
everyone for submitting your responses.
So Raj, what would your advice be to us and to our audience with regards to, of course, whether to go to cloud or not? I think it's a rhetoric question. I think you probably answered the question already in the past. But just in closing, what are your thoughts? Any advice that you'd like to give us or
Um,
suggestions?
yeah, Sunil, look, it's not one size fits all. Obviously, every
Mm,
company looks at their own individual um, structure, or what do you call it, the infrastructures, sizing, the whole paradigm around what how the applications hang together, the integrations and so on. Everyone looks at that from time to time again and says, well, what's my ideal environment? I think we kind of fell into it, lucky or unlucky, but
mm,
it's for us, it was the bright blessing at the right time to go to cloud. And I think now more than ever we are starting to reap the benefits of it. And so don't let me put words in everyone's mouth, but basically what we are doing now, for example, 12 months, so 2018 was our first year we on cloud. And 2019, I think the infrastructure manager within Compass, my colleague, he actually got a report from group to say this was our utilization going, this is how we've done, we've increased data loads, whatever it is, data size, whatever, and gave us a forecast that if we keep growing at the same rate, this is what our cost could be, on cloud. Now, tell me one on-premise system that has actually have given me that. Never. I've always had to sort of ask for data all the time from my vendor, and
mm,
so for cloud, you do get a lot of those what I call intangible benefits, where you can actually plan better for what your requirements are going to be 12 months, 24 months out of here, because you know what your data growth is year on year. You know what your business applications is going to be, or at least the landscape, and whatever is on cloud. So that actually now I'm starting to see, and we're just about to do a budget for next year, because we run on an October to September year end. And it was just so good to have the report and say, you know what, these are places where we can, where there's data purging, whatever it is, we could reduce cost in a real sense on cloud infrastructure, no matter what application you're talking about, because you've got database, you've got the application, and then you've got, data, the size of data to think about. The whole thing about disaster recovery, about backups, storages, sensitive data as opposed to not so sensitive data. I mean, some systems, if it is down for 7 days, does it actually hurt the business? Some systems, we need to have 24/7, like your financial application. So, cloud gives you the flexibility to address it. Horses for courses, basically.
sure.
And I think we are now going to the mature stage in 2 years to say we've got more control. Infrastructure gives us a feedback to say you should actually look at this as a cloud offering rather than that as a cloud offering. And people have to really evaluate the whole in-house landscape to say, yep, these are the pain points. This is where it's costing me money. We're bleeding from a cost perspective, and then look at the cloud as an alternative with the right intention, which I think always would be, I would say, cost plays a huge part, especially in the current environment.
Awesome. No, thanks a lot. These were the easy questions, by the way, Raj. The tough ones are coming now. So let's open the lines for questions from the attendees. And I'm sure all of you must have some questions basically to Raj. Feel free to write. Raj is here to help us to at least address those questions. So we'll open the lines. Varun, do you want to take over from here and see if we got some questions already?
Yeah, thanks, Sunil and Raj. Thanks for this wonderful discussion. So we'll go ahead and take some questions for now. Just a reminder to everyone, please be sure to type your questions into the question box in your control panel. We'll take a few second pause here to accept your questions, and then we'll start asking questions. Yeah, so we have a few questions coming up. The very first question is from Michael. He's asking, how difficult was it to transition from on-prem to cloud? Over to you, panelists.
You're asking me to answer that, Sunil? Yeah? Or
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It was difficult. I'll be honest with you. As I said, we started making some noise probably a couple of years before we actually went onto cloud for the first application. So because it was status quo is always the easy way out, and when you've got a company like ours where DNTS is more a support function, we're providing the environment for people to perform the business application, whatever. It was a hard pull, and because this required a mindset of moving from a capex model to an opex model, and then having more control, with the vendor, whoever you choose for your cloud. It was a bit of a struggle, but once we looked in deeper into what do I call beneath the surface, we found actually there was so much benefits we could pick up very quickly, because we were in a on-premise or physical server environment where the infrastructure was old, aging hardware. It was costing us a lot to maintain it. We were at the mercy of one vendor, whereas with cloud, it's quite portable in the sense. If you decide to go with AWS, you don't like it, you could go to another Azure, you could go to Oracle, whoever. I mean, there's many offerings with cloud. So I think once we actually saw that it was not as intimidating as we thought it was, and cloud being the buzzword in 2017, it wasn't too bad. So, Michael, I hope that I'm sort of helping me answer that question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Raj, for answering that question. I hope, Michael, you have that suffice your question. Now we have another question coming in from Sushil. He's asking, any suggestion what workloads can I move to the cloud?
When you say workloads, I think from a maintenance, so it depends on, I believe, and again, this might be a bit beneath me, but when you talk about workloads move to the cloud, it is probably what sort of engagement you have with the cloud vendor as to whether you want to have a fully maintained a cloud offering, or whether you want to still keep the control of the maintenance of the applications within in-house. And I think, Sunil, if I'm not mistaken, is that how I can read this question, or anyone else on the panel?
Yeah, so obviously you addressed it, I think, correctly. And workloads, of course, can mean anything, can have a very wide ranging meaning to it, right? So in your context, you've addressed it the way you could. I think that would resolve the question or the answer
To
for
put it
them.
this way, we had an in-house DBA, we had in-house sort of technical people that we didn't require anymore once we moved to cloud. In fact, the only thing we needed functional support, which obviously path of providing on the Oracle EBs and other applications. But from a infrastructure support, we actually those numbers were reduced, and therefore it led to cost savings. So I think it depends on what you really want to move on to cloud, whether you want a fully managed cloud offering, and if that's the case, then you build it into the cloud costing, cloud server hosting, and patches and maintenance and all that. So it's how you look at it. But we've actually been lucky in that way that we've not had any issues moving whatever we did move to cloud as part of the maintenance side.
So Raj, this is Pankaj here. I believe
Yeah.
I think the question was more about if I got it right, was more about how do you decide and which workload, which application. By workload, I think like in your case, you all decided to
Application.
move Oracle e-business to the cloud, and then subsequently, like you said, currently you have almost like 95% of your applications running on the cloud. But how did you decide which one to move with first, and how, what were some of the considerations to that
Okay.
extent, and how do you take that
Look,
decision?
I think we've got a whole mixture of applications in our business. Some of them are vendor hosted. So if it is vendor hosted, the vendor decides to move, let's say, the procurement system or the payroll system to cloud, then obviously that's a different scenario there. But again, we've always taken the conservative approach with no matter what application move, as to whether security is number one, paramount, data integrity, privacy, the whole thing. So I would say that those things probably played a bigger part in making the call to say let's go to cloud for various different applications. I was restricting myself to the applications that I manage. So if I've just said something that sounds like the across the business, it's probably not true. Every application is looked in its entirety and say, is this the right way to go? Is access going to be the same? Is there going to be any drop in customer access levels, for example, moving to cloud? So I think, yeah, as I said, horses for courses. Look at each of the applications, and we've actually moved, as I said, 90 to 95% of applications now are on cloud, whether it's vendor-hosted cloud or our own cloud. That's that I won't be able to give you the full details of. Is that answer
Sure.
that? Sorry, Varun.
Sure. Thank you so much, Raj, for this wonderful answer. So we have we'll take few more questions and then we can move on. So next question is coming from Lohit. He's asking, we had used Oracle for a customer in 2016. However, we observed a lot of network issues and servers getting rebooted automatically. Are you facing these issues?
And this is on cloud, I take it. We actually did have this, and I'll tell you, in about the last 2 years, has probably happened once or twice. Again, not being very technical, infrastructure basically came back with the reasons why, and I'll tell you now, the most of it was because obviously we have a vendor that is managing the server, if you want to provide support on the OS level as opposed to the application level, because application obviously with path. And certain triggers, I believe certain triggers happened. This is a couple of times, and one was actually during month end, so I remember very vividly. Is basically it's certain triggers shut down the server, shut down one of the databases or whatever it was. But I believe it was done through some routine scheduled work that was not notified to us, if that makes sense. So we did not, it was like an unplanned outage where the system went down into a reboot or a restart. And this is something that our infrastructure team were not aware of. It was scheduled probably at a global level or whatever by AWS. And yeah, we did have it. Luckily, we did not lose any data. And the normal, I suppose, the normal backups and all that kicked in, and we were fine. But this has happened, you're right, in about 2.5 years, probably happened, well, almost 2.5 years, it's happened about twice. And it has not happened in the last 12 months, which says we must have got around it now.
Sure. Thank you so much, Raj. So we'll have one more question from Ronaldo. So he's asking, we have a legacy system with Oracle 10G and old OS that is no longer supported by original vendor. how can we deploy in cloud without having to spend a cost similar to buying a new system? Should we stick to Oracle or approach Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud?
Hmm. I think
So
this is a good.
Raj, I will take that for you. This
Thanks,
is
Pankaj.
Pankaj here. Yeah, so Ronaldo, I think you know it is it's a complex situation of yours when you are on 10G, and so I think it'll have to be a more detailed or a assessment that will need to be done, and I think it will require collaboration with the vendor whose application you are using, and it'll have to be I would say a multi-step cloud migration that one will potentially have to plan a strategy for in terms of upgrading from the current version of database and application to the more supported version, because 10G, I'm sure you know, is not even in extended support from Oracle at this point in time. Uh, but I think that's at a high level, that is the way that one will have to make progress to upgrade the database version, application version, and then make it compatible with the available versions on the cloud. But I must tell you that even if you decide to, independent of whether you decide to stay on-prem or uh, go on the cloud, you still will have to follow the same steps in terms of becoming current on your technology platform, because even some of the newer hardware platforms, if you were to procure them for on-premise, they will definitely not support, in some way or the other, will not support 10G as a database platform. But we'll be happy to sort of, participate in any way if you think there is external help that you need for that assessment. But it will require deeper assessment to define an approach and a strategy for you to take the journey to the cloud. But it's technically feasible, yes.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. I hope, Ronaldo, this answers your question. Oh, great. Yeah, so we'll have a couple of more questions, but I think we can take, please feel free to share your question post this webinar as well. We'll be happy to connect with you separately and answer more questions. Now, moving on to the next part. As we said in the beginning that there's a raffle draw for the attendees, and we'd like to inform that winners of the raffle draw would be eligible to receive a 5-day cloud enablement service compliments from Path Infotech, which would include a cloud instance setup. There will be a hands-on lab session, and there will be a lift and shift of a simple application. So now the interesting part, obviously, out of all the attendees, we have picked up some random names, and now we would like to announce the winners of the raffle draw. Just give me a moment to announce that. So, okay, so we have few names here. First one is Brad Atkin from Electrolux. Then we have Jason To from RQM. Then we have Joseph Wong from Fong's Engineering and Manufacturing. We have Mandeep Sahani, Jazz Forwarding WW Private Limited. We have Ronaldo here from Mullins Insurance. Then we have Russell Sutton from Transurban. So congratulations to all the winners. Congratulations to all the winners, and we'll connect with you separately to share more information on this. Again, congratulations. Now, moving on, I'm sure you could relate to the challenges faced by businesses in the story of us, which we covered earlier, and also we talked about it. And you know what more needs to be done to ensure that business is as usual. There could be some challenges which you are facing. We are more than happy. You can reach out to us and share your business challenges, and we'll be more than happy to find a solution and work around it. So with that, and you can obviously reach out to us at on this email ID, which is varun.rawat@pathinfotech.com. And with that, we end this webinar. I would like to thank, everyone again for taking the time out and joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. Hope you find the session interesting and informative. So see you next time. Thank you so much.
And a special word of thanks for Raj and Sunil for this interactive session. This is Pankaj here. Raj, really appreciate your insights and sharing your experiences with the audience today. I think it was definitely insightful and helpful for everybody to sort of gain and learn from the experiences that you've had. And ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to reach out to Varun or to any one of us. And congratulations once again to all the winners from the Raffle Draw. I think it provides a great platform for you to, if you haven't and you're still thinking about taking the journey to the cloud, it is your opportunity to avail of that offer and make the best of it in getting yourself acquainted, or I would say, Russell, special congratulations to you that I think it provides a great platform for us to sort of answer some of those questions that you had and get a little more on ground insight, if I were to use that. I think on that note, I'd like to thank again everybody and look forward to seeing you next time on another day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pankaj. And yes,
Thanks, Pankaj.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks, everyone.